Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's System Admin webinar on accounting integration highlights, configuration, mappings, job import, and more. My name is Stephen Assey, and I'll be instructing us through today. So some of the main talking points of today's webinar are going to be to confirm the integration and configuration settings within WeEstimate, setting and managing some default settings, understanding your system data and how it works and how it reads, as well as how to import a one job into accounting, and just kind of going over the basic steps of how to get that over to your accounting system. As always, we want to make the most of your time today. So if you have any questions at any time throughout the webinar, don't be shy. Just go ahead and type them right into the chat, even if it's just because we've gone too fast or if you want to see or hear something again. So let's jump right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And let's go ahead and bring up our cell server. Beautiful. Okay. So just as a preface, everything we're going to be talking about today and showing you guys today is going to be on version 6.10. That is the latest build. It's also being pushed out to everybody next week, or this week, later on this week, probably about Thursday or Friday, should be given the go-ahead. And also, this is our demo environment, so you might just see some, kind of demo slash test looking jobs or customers, things like that. Always like to give that disclaimer when I'm doing these webinars. So first and foremost, kind of just going through a lot of the talking points here, we're going to be spending most of our time within tools and then program options. Program options is really where you're going to be kind of spending most of your time kind of going through your system-wide defaults, your system-wide settings, and then also just kind of how to maintain your system. So for today's webinar, we're going to be spending pretty much exclusively our time in the accounting interface. So the accounting interface is the second from the top on your left-hand side. And your accounting interface has 4 tabs, 3 of which we're really going to be focusing on today. The first tab is called Connection. A connection is really where you're going to be spending kind of the least amount of time, I would say. But in the connection tab, this is really where your kind of the membrane or the motherboard, so to speak. This is how your WeEstimate product talks and communicates to your accounting integration. So a lot of this is just kind of set it and forget it. It's kind of a one-time thing, and most of the time, this is what your IT would help you out with. But to kind of go through, just so you have the idea of it, the first important thing is to look at your accounting system. So on your dropdown, you're going to see you have all of the accounting systems that we integrate with and correspond to. So NetSuite, Managely, QuickBooks, Sedona, SAP, any of those guys. So for this purpose, we're just going to keep it on Sedona just to make it a little easy. And I know that's probably our most popular product that we have for integration. Next is this little enable checkbox. So this is really what controls it. So if this is turned on, your accounting system is turned on. And if it's disabled, then, well, your accounting system is going to be turned off. Below that, these are just your database configurations. So if you're ever working with WeSuite or Sedona, they might ask you for kind of some basic information. This is just how the two applications communicate to each other. So if you see we have our database server and our linked server name, this is our WeSuite side of things. And if you're going to see on the right-hand side, your database and linked database name, these are your accounting integrations. So for us, this is where WeSuite information is stored, and this is where our Sedona information is stored. And also, if you ever need a reference to a login, you have your username embedded here. Your password is blank, it's generally encrypted just for security purposes, but you can have your username listed out here if need be. And also you have this little checkbox here, use Windows authentication. This just really determines how the information is pulled from your database. So SQL is really SQL, if you're not familiar with it, that's where your database is stored. That's kind of where all the tables, and it's really the engine that makes all these products work. You have this little checkbox that determines how you're going to activate it, right? So you have Windows, which is just like your kind of your computer settings, and also you have SQL login. So by right now, this being unselected, that just means we're connected to SQL. Again, most of this first tab is generally set it and forget it. There's really not too much there beyond that. You set up one time and you're good to go unless you change your accounting system. Options. So options has, I would say, kind of the most meat of all these tabs. Under options, you have a couple of different categories. So the first section Under options is options. Uh, and this really controls how information is pushed to Sedona or your accounting equivalent. So you have things on here such as, I'm not going to go through all of these just for the sake of time, but you have options here like use job types. If use job types is selected, for instance, how we would read the information is Sedona would then say, we're going to use Sedona's job types and we're going to overwrite WeSuite's job types. So if you were to access your job types from a drop-down tab within a job, it'll then pull in your job types from accounting. So if you want that and you live out of your accounting system and you want those to be your kind of what you're using, you do want to make sure use job types is toggled on. Other main important ones here that I would say to focus on is you have your part search first. Part search first, if you have this toggled on, it'll flip the within a job, which I can show you in a little bit. It'll show you kind of your preferred view. So if you're a company that utilizes WeSuite parts and accounting parts, use part search first will then prioritize the accounting parts first, and it'll basically give you that red gear tab first for the gray gear for WeSuite. Now, again, there's other options there that you can hide a specific tab. So if you're just using accounting or you're just using WeSuite, you can hide either one of those tabs there. Other than that, on these tabs here, the middle section is a use single material item. What that basically does is you have the ability to either push data over with a one line, like a single line, or if you toggle that out, it'll break out the lines to have multiple categories. And basically what that means is if you're pushing over categories and information to Sedona with, let's say CCTV or fire, it'll just have one line for you that you're pushing over. It'll give you one material line, one labor line, one other, meaning like shortable items, RMR, or test and inspect if you utilize it. So this gives you the ability to just push over one line to say, I just want all my materials lumped together and I want them pushed over, or I want them to be broken out per line item. I would say 9 times out of 10, most of our clients use a single material invoice item just to make the import a little bit easier so you're able to track, what each line item is. Beyond that, other than that in this category, the other thing I would say to focus on is the standard cost, which is the last checkbox here. I use standard cost just determines what cost comes over from Sedona. If you want purchasing cost or standard. By default, I'll take the purchasing cost, but if you would rather have the standard cost come over, you just go ahead and check on this little checkbox here. In the middle, combine invoice options. This is just kind of a complement to the single labor invoice items. What this does is just gives the system another level to say exactly how it's hovering right now. It combines labor material invoices into one invoice item. So if you have the single labor items turned on, by default, it'll also give you this ability right here. This is just a secondary option where if you want to have everything combined, just to confirm that, you would toggle it here. Below that, in this section, you have your descriptions and defaults. Kind of the inverse to the top section of options. Descriptions and defaults, how this reads is this basically tells you how WeSuite reads Sedona, while this top section is kind of the inverse. With this gives you a couple different levels, a couple different options to choose from, where you're able to have different views. So for instance, you have your part search use. So you're able to see, if you're searching for parts, how do you want them to display? So by default, you have your standard description, sales description, purchase description, or detail. Those are just different categories that are coming over from Sedona and from accounting. So if you're searching for a part, like if you're within a job and you're searching for a manufacturer, or let's say you're searching for like a camera or a panel, a kit, whatever it may be, whatever search here is how it reads from Sedona. So I would say take a look at your system and see from your accounting side of things, how are you reading your information? How are you using your information? A lot of the times people use have sales and standard description be totally different. A lot of our customers will have sales description be read on the document, whereas standard description is more internally used. So I would say ultimately kind of figure out just your personal preference, what you would like there. Other than that, just kind of going through a lot of these are pretty much self-explanatory, but for part display use, this is just if you're searching for a part, are you using which description as well. So one is for display, so what one shows, and the other one is for search. nine times out of 10, these are generally the same, where you'd want the search to be one thing and you would want it to display the same thing as well. But there might be use case scenarios where, if you're using, like I just said before, one for internal, one for external for your customers, you might want to have different, one for display, one for search. Search threshold, that's hard to say. Uh, Search threshold is how many parts come up in your search. So if you are ever in a case where, from my support days many moons ago, we got a lot of tickets come in where people were trying to find, parts. They were saying, hey, you know what? I'm searching for, access, or I'm searching for, camera, or I'm searching for a common buzzword that we have a ton of different results for, but I'm only seeing, 50 results, 100 results, 10 results. The first thing that I would say to do is look at your search threshold. With this, you can have a threshold, I think up to 10,000, if I'm not mistaken, or 100,000. I know it's a huge window, but I don't quote me on that. But you can have a search threshold to say, if I'm searching for, you know, a certain buzzword or certain keyword, how many parts will come up as the maximum. So if you're ever in that situation where you're searching and you're just not finding what you think you have, check your threshold. See if you have more than what you have set up. I've seen also sometimes the default be like 100, and I feel, in my opinion, that's way too low. But again, it's personal preference. Term and billing frequency really go hand in hand. This is how we read your accounting RMR items. So the term 36 months, and then the billing frequency being monthly. That's how we read the information that's coming from Sedona, and we'll have a kind of a system-wide default. So if you want to have a system-wide default, you'll plug in your 36 months and your monthly. Now, how this gets trumped is if you have specific terms on specific items, it will take the item specific, but this will be your kind of system-wide default if for whatever reason it's not coming over with the default term. Nine times out of 10 it doesn't. It will have a term or a monthly billing frequency, but in the event that it doesn't for whatever reason, it'll take this default. Labor unit mapping. This is really how your labor gets mapped. If you have a labor mapping listed out here, so right now we just have installation labor. When we're pushing labor over to Sedona or your accounting equivalents, it will lump everything over into this one labor category. So if you want to have that one labor line item all get lumped to one labor category, then you're going to want to go ahead and select something from the dropdown. If you were to go ahead and change this from labor one to none, then what that'll do is that selecting it to none will then say there's no default mapping. It'll push over with whatever labor it is within your job, your system, and it'll push over to accounting respectively. So this really kind of depends ultimately on just how your flow is. If you want to have a single labor invoice item, you're pushing it over and you're combining everything, you can select it as just that one mapping. Or what a lot of our users do is they just say, we're not mapping it to anything, it's going to be mapped to whatever category it is within the system. And the reason for that is there could be instances where you're pushing over labor that might not be mapped or might be a newer category, and people like to just mitigate, just any kind of things that could go wrong. RMR mapping, we have none because we're not using RMR items from Sedona in our accounting. But what this could do is if you want to have kind of the same thing as labor, you can default map an RMR item to a specific RMR item within accounting. It's a additional layer for you if you want to have it, if you need it. Part pricing option depends on what do you want to be read from Sedona or your accounting equivalent. Do you want it to be cost or sell? A lot of the times people will have their cost and then they'll have their system GPM, and just system margins take over for the sell. But you never know. You might want to have sell instead. But I would say 9 times out of 10, our customers use cost and then have our system-wide GPM take over for the sell price. Default warehouse. So if you're not familiar, Sedona has warehouses for pricing. We have something called a regionalized system. So if you're utilizing multiple warehouses with multiple systems and you have maybe different branches that utilize different warehouses and different pricing, you can have your warehouses set up here. So we have some of our clients that are regionalized, so they'll have default warehouse pricing, then they'll have that selected here, and they're able to go ahead and pull specific pricing from different warehouses. If you're not and you just have a basic system, then you can go ahead and select none. That's not really too big of a deal. Lastly, phase. Phase is one of the categories that Sedona reads. I don't know if the other accounting integrations read it as well, but default phase is, again, a default option that you can select here. So we just have the basic install or not available. Lastly, in this tab, we just have the ability to import main point of contact. We can go ahead and just push that over to accounting if need be. So if there's ever a scenario where you're creating a WeSuite customer and it doesn't exist within accounting, then we can go ahead and just create a customer and push it over to a contact and assign it to your accounting system and integration. So one question did come in. So how do you select a default phase? Does it pull the phases from Sedona? So it does, Judy. So the default phase should be coming from Sedona. And as long as you have, so the first thing to do is to see if you have your connection first. So select your connection and then go into your options and then go ahead and select the default phase. These options come from Sedona. So Sedona has a built-in list of options that you can select from your phase, and it is a live read here, so it should be able to take that information from Sedona. If you're not seeing that, Judy, go ahead and just let me know. More than happy to to help if you're not seeing your accurate list. And then I did see a hand go up. So oh, you're not seeing your faces. Okay, Judy, go ahead if you can. Just go ahead and submit a support ticket for that. We'll go ahead and take a look for you. It might be there could be an issue with that. I'm not 100% too sure, but yeah, we can go ahead and take a look for you. That's not a problem. And I did see a hand go up. So Stacy, if you have a question, just go ahead and feel free to type it into the chat. I'd be more than happy to answer it for you. Okay. Any other questions, guys, before I transition over to the mappings portion? Okay. Awesome. Yeah, the first question was that there wasn't an install choice. Yeah, you're right, Linda. So she wasn't seeing any sort of default phases from the drop down, and I believe that is a live read. But I could be wrong. So let me go ahead after this. I can double check to see with our support team, just to double check to see if the default phases come from accounting or if that's just there might be an issue with that. I know from our system, we just have within accounting, we just have install and not available. Those are our two options. I don't think it's a data list. Let me just check really quickly here. Oh, well, no, this doesn't line up. Yeah. Okay. So there might be an issue with that. Uh, got it. Okay. Understood. And then Stacy, could more than one phase be set up within WeSuite? Uh, so more than one phase, yes. So the phases can be set up on a job level. You're able to select different phases per folder, but it would just be required to go ahead and just kind of have that manual set up. Okay, so a lot of people aren't seeing anything there. Okay, so there might be an issue with that, or I could just be misreading that information. So let me just make a note of that, and I'll go ahead and figure out the next steps for the phase portion. But no, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like everybody kind of is in the same boat with that. Yeah, correct, Stacy. And that's one of the things that I'll show in a little bit because I'll go into the actual job creation process and I'll show you kind of where the phase takes over. So you can see kind of on a job level where they go. Beautiful. Yeah, no problem. So other than that, guys, and keep the questions coming. This is fantastic. So beyond that, really the last portion within this screen is the mappings portion. So with mappings, the important thing to know with this tab is, and the reason why this is not quite used as much as connection and options, is under mappings. These are generally for your WeSuite information, how you want your WeSuite information to be read by Sedona in terms of different categories. And the reason why it's not used all the time is because 9 times out of 10, you're either using, Sedona or your accounting parts, items, labor, whatever it may be. But we have this section called mappings just in the odd event that you do need to map some items. So from a little while ago, we would have kind of this you have your exception checks, and under the exception checks, you would have kind of this ability to map each item per kind of line item. And we'll go into that. But before then, but kind of the back in the day portion, we had to kind of manually map a lot of this stuff out, and a lot of it was a set and forget type of thing. But now you have these dedicated tabs for it, and we have the ability to read a lot of this information from accounting directly. So we have different tabs here. So we have our labor tab, and we have our labor category, and then we have our accounting labor column. And what's important to know is that all of these labor categories here on the left-hand side are what's coming from accounting. Sorry, backwards. These all your labor categories are coming from WeSuite. And then on the right-hand side, your accounting labor column, these are what you have within your accounting system. So what this does, and the reason why this is very much a set and forget type of thing, is unless you're changing your labor categories or you're adding or modifying them, you would just have to map these once if needed, if you're utilizing your WeSuite categories. So right now, how this works is we have all of our categories here from WeSuite, and I left a couple of these blank just on purpose. So go ahead and hit this little drop down. And the closest thing we have from our accounting system is equipment install. So we go ahead and toggle that. If you ever see a 3 or like a numerical value, so like this one right here, UAS labor, that typically means that a category either was deleted, renamed, changed, or anything like that within your accounting system. So if you ever see a numerical value, don't panic. That's just generally what it is. So a lot of the times our users will kind of just rename categories and or maybe delete and remove. So what you would have to do in that case, if you ever see like a numerical value, is just go ahead and click on the drop down, and you would just select a corresponding value. Everything else here is fairly similar, fairly straightforward. You'll have job types. So you have the ability to disable job types if you don't want to have them read, or you'll have your job types coming over from Sedona. So this right here, if you have this use job types selected, it'll be pulling this entire drop-down list. So you'll see, access, add-ons, alarm, burglar, all this stuff. And if you have that turned off, you'll see what you have on the left-hand side, which is just your WeSuite items. If you're using WeSuite, not accounting, but you have accounting items, you can go ahead and just map them out this way if you'd like to, and it'll map them over. But if 9 times out of 10, what all of our users will do is if they have accounting job types, they'll just go ahead and just go into our options tab and just select this, just have the job types read over, and just save a step so you don't have to map. And then lastly here, we have options. So options is really where you're going to be seeing the ability to map certain types of items. So you have your parts, your charge items, RMR, labor, test and inspect, special one-time, and wire. And how this really works is you can go ahead and search for part on the left-hand side. And this gives you your WeSuite parts. And you can search for accounting parts on the right-hand side. Now, in a case like this, I'm not going to map these, but I'm going to show you how to walk through it, just because we're utilizing 2 different databases for this. But if you see a part that you want to map on the left-hand side, you would go ahead and find that part. So we'll just take a 2 gig part for right now to make it a little easier. And just drag it down. On the accounting part, you do the same thing. Just drag it down. And there's going to be on the bottom portion of the screen a little button here called Map It. And why this is important is if you're utilizing WeSuite parts as well as accounting parts, it gives you the ability to map them. So if you want to use a WeSuite part instead of an accounting part, but you want it to be pulled over into your accounting system, you can then have that integration take place. So there wouldn't be any sort of data loss or no data integrity issues or things along those lines. Again, the reason why this is a little antiquated is I feel like nowadays there's a lot of our clients are one or the other. Rarely it's both, and then like if you're using both, then there's kind of this kind of gray area in between. But if you ever need to physically map parts and you want to do it without going into the job, this is how you would do it. So you would drag them down, and you would click on the map it portion. Other than that, a lot of these others are the exact same way, such as labor, charge items, your RMR. The only kind of different one is special one time. So this comes up from support. From a support level, if you're ever seeing data that is missing, so like let's say you're pushing information from, your accounting system over to WeSuite, and you're missing information. Like let's say you're missing freight, or you're missing tax, or you're missing burden, offset, things like that. Anything listed out here is what is being pushed over to accounting. Anything checked is what's mapped. Now, by default, some of these might be turned on, some of these might not be. But this also gives you the ability to map, tax or offset to a specific item. So a lot of the times, this will be, if you're not seeing it properly mapped here, there's also a database level that we can control it. But this gives you the ability to just, if you want to basically say, I want commissions to go to commissions, I want burden to go to a burden item, things like that. If you want these special one-time quote unquote items to be mapped to a specific item instead of coming over as kind of just this other column, you can do so here as well. So this just gives you that additional level of customization. Again, a lot of what I'm showing you today is optional, and it's just good to know from a background standpoint. And a lot of the times, if you're using accounting and you're using accounting items, accounting parts, and things like that, then a lot of what I'm showing you from this mapping portion is really irrelevant to you. But this is good to know in case you're doing both databases, in case you're doing WeSuite and you're doing accounting. Okay, so that kind of covers the the boring, so to speak, program options portion. I'll kind of switch gears here and dive into the actual job creation process and pushing it over to accounting so you can see that. But before I transition, any other questions from you guys before I start over? Okay, beautiful. Okay, and if questions do come up, guys, feel free to go ahead and type them into the chat. I'm live monitoring it so I can see them as they come in if you have any questions. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and, yep, so I see, Stacy, you have a question. What about mapping a subcontractor to the subcontractor within Sedona? So that's a great question. So subcontractors, if you have the subcontractor module, you can have subcontractors push over as a customer contact. So that was one of those first information. So let me dive back here so you can see it really quick. So with our accounting information, you have one of two things you can do. So if you're looking for, subcontractors, uh, you're not necessarily going to see it be listed out as one of the categories here. A subcontractor is listed out as a contact. So if you could do one of two things. You can either create contact within Sedona if you want to, or your accounting equivalent, or if you go back to our options, you can include this little option down here to say main point of contact. So if you want to create a subcontractor within Sedona or within WeSuite and do it reverse, you can make sure this main point of contact is toggled on. What that'll do is that'll then say, it'll tell the system, hey, push over this main point of contact, especially if it's not of a Sedona or accounting customer or contact. What that'll then do is it'll push over the contact within to Sedona, and then Sedona will say, I don't know this contact. Let's create it and let's assign it to either a subcontractor, a particular customer, or however you would want to integrate your information. I know people handle subcontractors a little differently. So I would say if it doesn't exist within Sedona or your accounting, make sure that this main point of contact is toggled on. The system will basically then not yell at you, but it'll say, hey, you don't have a contact that lives within Sedona. Do you still want to push it over? And once you say yes, it'll then move that contact over to Sedona, and you would then create and assign it to a customer, if that makes any sense. Uh, this is a charge to the customer as to our charge items. I see. So you're doing a subcontractor that is built as an item, not an actual like the module. I see. Got it. In that case, you could do one of two different things. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that, Stacy. Yeah, we have customers that do one of two ways. So in that case, you could do one of two different things. The easiest thing to do is if you have the item that is created already. For that, in that case, I don't mean to dive too far away from this guy, so I apologize. This also might be good to know for you guys as well. Stacy, do you know offhand if you do it as it's a charge item? Yep, okay, you mentioned that. Beautiful. So let me go ahead and find our subcontractor. So we do have an equivalent to this. So what you can do in this case is we have in our editors tab, so chart editors, charge items, you have a list of all of your chargeable items here. So if you want to create an item, you would add a new item, you would fill out your information here, and then you would look for the accounting link. And the accounting link, once you create it, will then give you the ability to select your accounting link to Sedona or your accounting equivalent. So by clicking on this dropdown, you would then look for the subcontractor item within Sedona. So in this case, you're creating your chargeable item. If it doesn't exist already, you would then enter your specifics, whether you want to do it as a direct charge, a specific cost, GPM, kind of all that information. And then the last piece for you, the most important piece, would be to select from the drop-down link. If you're just going to go through here and say, let's find the item within Sedona, and let's go ahead and map it to this item here. And then once this item is used on a job level and pushed over into accounting, Sedona would then read the information and say, okay, got it. This is a subcontractor item. This is the information. These are the specifics. So it does require a little bit of setup, Stacy. So we just have to create the item within WeEstimate just to make sure that it's read over. And then you would just map it to that subcontractor item within Sedona. But you do that all within the WeSuite interface. And then once it's brought over to Sedona, you would have no issues there. So hopefully that helps. Dario, yep, I did see your question come in. That's something that I'll address at the end of the webinar. Perfect. I thank you for bringing that up. But I was going to mention that at the end. Okay. So any other questions, guys, before I dive into kind of the last little portion here? And it's relatively quick, so it shouldn't be too bad. But any other questions, guys? Okay, beautiful. So really the last portion here that I wanted to show is just going through the job import process. So I went ahead and just kind of ran some tests here. So I'll go ahead and just create a brand new project, just from start to finish so you can see it. Let's go to Glens Gardens, sites, map our market, map our job type, system type, type of sale, our customer. Again, also I get this question a lot. If you are searching for a customer and you're seeing different tints, orange means that it's an accounting customer that's already been used before and it has a link. Green means that it's an accounting customer, but it's never been used before. And on the site and billing, if you're seeing a chain link here, that means it has been used before with a green tint. That means it's accounting, but it's never been used before. So chain link, accounting, been used before, green, accounting, hasn't been used. So why we changed it from chain and not orange? Not a developer. I'm getting paid the big bucks for that. So beyond that, have our site billing. We're going to search for our contact here. So we'll search for Glenn. And click on continue. So I'm not going to create kind of this crazy in-depth job. I just want to kind of get this pushed over so you can see the process. So we'll go ahead and just add a couple accounting parts here. And we'll do electronic. Okay. So we have a couple items here. We'll keep it a very basic job, just under $1,000 sell, kind of just to mitigate, what we have here. Stacy, to answer your question, we have phase is selected here, so you'll be able to have different phases per different folders. So if you want to have an item, you can also select phases on different items as well. So it really depends on your level of kind of flexibility that you want. So just so you know kind of the hierarchy of it, if you have a default phase selected on a folder level, it'll automatically map all of your items with that corresponding phase. If you want to have different phases for different parts, you would click on the little drop down here and select the drop down. So you can have install and you can have NA if you want to. Or you can select from the drop down from the folder, from like the estimate, all estimate items. You can select the phase and it'll just make everything the same. So you can do it per part, per folder, or you can just do it kind of across the job. It really just depends on your level of flexibility that you would want. Hey, Katie. Just wondering if phases, I don't know if I missed something. So phase, I don't necessarily if phase applies to you because you're not using Sedona. Phase is just kind of another identifier to determine, the next steps for that part. I don't know if your accounting integration has phase, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it does. So I think phase is really more of a Sedona thing. But you generally speaking, people would have like, it's next for install or I've only seen install on my end, but it's just an additional level of kind of the next steps for that part during the import process. But yeah, from your accounting perspective, I don't think you do. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. Okay. So other than that, guys, really simple. You're all job creating experts here. So we'll go ahead and just win this job and I'll show you the import process quick. So same process. So if you're not familiar with this is just you're creating your quote document. If you have anything that was already sent or flagged as sent to the customer, it'll show on this little drop down here. If not, you can go ahead and create a document and click on continue. So we'll let the system do its thing. And we'll let it keep doing its thing. And then as soon as this closes out, we'll just go ahead and click on OK. And here we go. So we'll refresh it, open our last estimate. And here we'll now have, and again, I apologize. This is this is really tailored to the Sedona side of things. I know some of you guys don't use Sedona, but kind of this next portion here is generally exclusively Sedona, so I apologize. But for the accounting tab, you'll see that we have a couple different options here. So we'll have continue, cancel, and mark as imported. Data lists and dates, Stacy. So data lists are in this tab right here. You have the ability within WeEstimate to create custom lists. So what a data list is we have some data lists that are already kind of inherently baked into the system. And I'll just show this really quick because I think this is also good to know. And it doesn't really kind of pertain to too much to accounting, but data lists are broken out here under tools, program options, appearances, and data lists. And all these data lists are, some of these are baked inherently into the software, but some of these are, custom created. So we have things like cable type. What a data list can do is it gives you the ability to have kind of like a checklist, so to speak, to say, I want to basically be able to answer these questions to go along the job. So you have the ability to make them required or not required, but also you can have them show on different levels of job creation. So you can have job creation be one of them. You could have during the job, kind of the in progress portion, or you can have it to prevent it from being job one. And what a lot of our customers will do with data lists is they utilize it as a way to say, have our sales reps have these questionnaires to go through their information and just make sure everything is lined up. So it just gives you like another way to say, we have some of our customers, for instance, they use it more as like an engineering level. So they have their engineers or project designers out in the field, and it gives them an additional level to say, does the job meet these requirements? Does it have, this information? If you're pushing this over to different levels, you want to make sure that you give them as much information as possible, and some of them don't really fit anywhere, right? So it's not going to be in the notes or it's not going to be in the approvals. Data list gives you that additional level of flexibility. Again, what a data list could be is really up to you, and I know that's unfortunately a little generic and vague, but these are just the options that we have. So we have things like account manager, billing frequency, cable type, emergency contact, is it a franchise or not, job types, system types, things like that. And like things like job types are inherently a data list, so things like that are baked in. The dates, So the dates are, and I'll show you the job level as well. So in our system, we have the ability to have custom dates. So custom dates allow you to determine if there was a cancellation date, a completion date, or installation date. Those are all controlled through your custom dates tab, and these can be fully customizable to you. So this gives you just an additional level of, if you want to control and show specific dates and time frames and pipelines, so to speak. It's kind of like a complement to forecasting, so to speak, but just more static fields. You're able to customize them here just by adding in the new custom date option at the bottom. And also you can have a default. So basically what it'll do is it'll say, I want this date to take the custom date that the job was created and then add 5 days to it. And that's your, estimated completion date. Perfect. That's a great question. So we'll go here and kind of as I was showing before, continue exception check, cancel preparation, mark as imported. Those are going to be your three options. Export items is going to be grayed out. So I'll just show you kind of all three of them. Continue exception check, that brings you to the next portion that basically progresses the job to accounting. So that it gives you that additional level of flexibility to say, I'm going to go ahead and push this over to our accounting equivalent. It's going to ask you for some questions just to verify information. That's the next step in progress. Cancel, that just pulls you out, right? If you make a mistake, you're not sure, that cancels you out, pulls you out. Mark as imported. If you ever are in a situation where the job already exists within Sedona, so let's say for whatever reason the job was created and exists within Sedona and lives within Sedona, and you just basically are doing, or your accounting equivalent, and you just want to do some backup and cover work on your end, you can basically create this job like we did right now, and then mark it as imported. What that'll do is it'll basically say the job is, quote unquote, imported. It'll tell the system, hey, yep, this job already lives within Sedona. Don't push it to Sedona, but we want to basically have this, treated as it has been imported to Sedona. Again, that's probably the most situationally used one, but it's there for you as an option just in case. I know there's times where some processes are, the accounting team works faster sometimes. So, in that case, that gives you the ability. The export documents, which we're not going to get into today, but the exporting documents, that is our Sedona document API. Basically what that means is we have it's sort of like a module, but what our API does is it basically says, if the accounting information pushes over to your Sedona and the work order has been created, this gives you the ability to push your documents over as well. So if you have supporting documents that are listed out here, so if you have like your summary, custom summary, if you have any kind of PDFs and documents to go along with it, this gives you the ability to push everything over. But again, at a baseline, that's not a baseline thing. It's an additional kind of quote unquote module or API that we add on. But it's really cool. It's really sleek. It gives you the ability to push over documents after the job already exists within Sedona. So other than that, guys, we're just going to go ahead and continue the exception check. If you have any sort of issues that come up before, it'll give you a little pop-up that says, X amount of issues has been found. And it's going to give you a little window that's going to say, these options are green or red. If anything's in red, then that's just going to tell you, hey, that's where the issue is. So I've seen things where, the contact's missing or, there's a billing that's missing, things like that. Also, with 6.9 and later builds, we now have this little button that tells you, whether or not the customer is accounting or WeSuite. It's not necessarily a roadblock, but it's going to come up in red if this customer is a WeSuite customer. So if you're pushing over a WeSuite customer, it's going to come over and say, accounting link not found. It's not going to stop you from importing it, but it's just there as a way to say, hey, just in case you're using a WeSuite customer, not an accounting customer. If all that looks good, which in our example it does, all we would have to do is just select the invoice item mapping types. So we would select, just your typical, these are your invoice items. And again, if you're not the accounting person from your team that's doing this is really where we hand it over to your billing and your accounting team, and they'll take it over from here. So in this, we'll go ahead and select it as install item. Now, because of the program options we had set, it basically takes all of the items and it's combining them all into one line item. So this is the first portion, combines them into the categories. The second one combines them into one specific line item. Yes. So this lines this over to everything here. And then if you have multiple folders, multiple folder dropdowns, this will give you multiple different folder types listed out here. So if you're using, different job types or system types on your job, so let's say you have 2 or 3 folders, they will all be listed out here. So in my case, I only have the one folder, but if you also have multiple folders with the same job or system type, it's going to give you just a one line item. And once that's done, go ahead and click on Finish and Queue for Accounting. What it's going to do is it's going to give you this little Waiting for Work Order button here. That's going to be in yellow, and its job is going to convert over to read only. Now, if we go to our handy dandy Sedona office, and so in here, if you're not familiar with it, we're going to be looking at on the left-hand side, we're going to be looking down the Job Management tab. We're going to find Job Queue. We're going to open up that. And we're going to be looking at our outdated WeSuite icon, our new branding, guys. And we're going to go ahead and just filter out however you want to filter it. So you can either filter by project number, create date, close date, project name. I find that project number is the easiest thing to filter by. So I'll just toggle that over. And then in here, you're going to want to go ahead and select your item, click on Create Job. It's going to give you this little import confirmation. It's going to let you know that if you had let's say if you were doing a WeSuite customer or a WeSuite contact or WeSuite setter billing, you'll then have to map them out here to the corresponding one within Sedona. But in this case, we're using a WeSuite customer. We're using a Sedona customer here. There wasn't a WeSuite customer. So everything looks good. We'll go ahead and click on OK. From this screen, all you have to do is go ahead and just select your job type, your install company. There could be other things as well, but from my perspective, I know those are just the requirements. So clicking on Apply. In here, there's no other requirements. It's already what's pre-filled. So we'll go ahead and click on Apply one more time. We'll go through our exception list. Everything looks like it's okay in Sedona Office. Beautiful. And we'll click on OK. And now the job exists within Sedona. So the work order was created. If we were to go back to our WeSuite job, close out, refresh, open last estimate, it has refreshed with work order created. This job now lives within Sedona. And the next steps from here would be up to your billing department to go ahead and do kind of the finer details, so to speak. But that is, in essence, the job creation process to import process within your Sedona system, and as well as your on your WeSuite side of things, kind of just your setup and kind of where to set your defaults. Pete, I know you had joined a little bit late. Pete, I'm sure a ton of you have worked from the support side of things. But Pete, one of the questions I had asked was for defaults phase. I thought phase comes from Sedona. There's a live read there, but we were not seeing it. A lot of people weren't seeing that be a live read. Could we just go ahead and create a support ticket for that if you get a sec?
Sure. Yeah, not a problem at all.
All right. Thanks, I appreciate it. Stacey, so one question coming from you. Why do you have two options when you send the documents over to Sedona? Two options from what screen, Stacey? Was it two options when you send the documents over? Was it from Sedona, from WeSuite? From WeSuite. So are you talking about from this screen, the accounting screen? Or was there a specific location? Yes, okay. So with this, you might have a couple different options here depending on your account and your admin rights. So you might have every little option here that's listed out is broken out by a group right. So depending on what group you belong to, you might see more, you might see less. The way we have it set up is we have it set up for just max rights. So we just see every little option. So For you, from like either like an everyday user or even from an admin standpoint, it might just have that level of control where you might want less or more. It just ultimately depends on the group, right, that you have toggled on. But by default, you have the continue, the cancel, the export documents, which is only turned on if you have the API turned on, and you also have the mark for imported. So all of those options are exclusively tied to a group, right? So depending on however much you have, it's just tied to a group, right? We have one that states all documents, all users. Yep. So Stacey, for that, yep. So your pipe marker. So you have a custom integration with us to have a kind of that additional piece. So you have a little bit of a different interface than us because we built a custom option for you guys. So yeah. So sorry, Stacey, it's a little different for you because we built a custom integration. But yeah. So everybody, that's really everything that I had from my end. We can wrap up a couple minutes early and yeah, get everybody back to their day. Yeah, Stacey, yeah, I'll take a further look on your end. Let us know if you have any questions. But yeah, I'm not 100% too sure, but I know we built a custom integration for you guys, so it most likely something tied to that. Yeah, any other questions, guys, before we wrap up? Yep. So really quick, I before I wrap up with you guys, you may have gotten a notification this week, a press release that said that WeSuite is now a part of the Aspire software group. So just to give you some background on that, we had met with the Aspire team last week. They had come into our office. They're an amazing group of people. We've met pretty much every single one of them. And really, from your day to day, nothing is changing. You were going to be, your service isn't going to change, your price isn't going to change that I'm aware of. Your everyday support, your everyday account managers, really from a WeSuite side of things, nothing is going to change from your end. What that means for us is we now have, a new parent organization that we're a part of. What Aspire is a part of Valsoft, so that's kind of the overarching company. Aspire is their kind of their software arm of things. And basically, what they do is they acquire these software companies. We're the first software as a service company and sales management company that they took on. So all that means for us is we now have that additional level of funding and additional level of kind of firepower to, have, our products be fine tuned, have more resources being able to pump into it. And a lot of our departments are going to have a little bit more of a backing than we currently have. But from your everyday users experience, nothing is really going to change. No, so Dario, not that I'm aware of. So version upgrades are never a cost or anything along those lines. As far as I'm aware of, nothing has been discussed with in terms of pricing changes or anything along those lines. If something like that were to happen, unfortunately, I'm not the best person to ask for that, but we would let you guys know well in advance, just in case. But as far as I'm concerned, pricing structure, anything else, nothing is going to change from your front end user, everyday use case scenario, anything like that, nothing is going to change. From us, we're just going to have that additional firepower to work with. But no, it's a great question. I mean, and if you guys have any further questions with that, you know, let me know. Let your account managers know. I mean, I know this week is kind of a weird week with ISC West coming along, and a lot of our users are there. But if you have any questions at any point, if you want to just have a one-on-one conversation, off call, let us know. We're happy to help. But yeah, guys. So just to kind of wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you for everybody for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you feel a little more comfortable, a little more better with all of the information that we had talked to about our accounting integrations, our setup, and things along those lines. And again, if you need to refer to this webinar again at any point, it's going to be emailed to everyone that signed up as an attendee, and also be posted to our website under the System Admin webinar page. So our next sales admin webinar is going to be on our DocuSign integration, and that's going to be May 14th from 1 to 2. And as well as our next user webinar is going to be the 201 version on advanced estimate features. That's going to be next Tuesday, April 16th. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.